Hello, I'm Hannah Kaplan, and this is the WCS Wild Audio Podcast, where you'll find reported audio stories covering the latest news and newsmakers from the Wildlife Conservation Society's Global Conservation Program, zoos and aquarium, and their many partners. We've got a great show today, so let's get to it. Turtles and tortoises are facing extinction, like few other species groups. Nearly half of the 300-plus species are at risk. The international pet trade is a major reason why. WCS's Bronx Zoo, as a member of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, is working to tackle the problem, and the case of the radiated tortoise is a good example. Dan Rosen has the story.
In 2018, at a house along the coast of Madagascar, the authorities there discovered more than 10,000 critically endangered radiated tortoises. They covered the floors of nearly every room in the house. They had no access to food or water. Poachers had collected them to supply the illegal pet trade. At that time, the Turtle Survival Alliance and more than 20 AZA zoos in the U.S., including the Bronx Zoo, stepped up to help.
There's old stories of, walking through southern Madagascar and you have to avoid stepping on and tripping over tortoises. There were just so many of them. And now they're critically endangered.
Kevin Torregrosa is the head of the herpetology department at the Bronx Zoo. Radiated tortoises have beautiful shells. They're high-arching and covered with a sunburst pattern of golden streaks. Unfortunately, Kevin says, it's that beauty that makes them attractive to illegal pet traders and has contributed to the decline of a tortoise that was once abundant.
Most of the pressures aren't really coming from communities on the island. It's from desire off of the island that's causing the smuggling issues with these tortoises.
These tortoises are fairly slow moving.
This is Bronx Zoo veterinarian Dr. Susie Bartlett.
And they really don't have much fear of humans, so they're pretty easy to pick up even out of the wild.
Which is presumably how the poachers were able to scoop up so many of them in 2018. For Susie and others, that huge bust was just the beginning.
As soon as all of these tortoises were confiscated, they needed immediate care. So a team of veterinarians and veterinary technicians and hospital staff, husbandry staff, our reptile experts here, went to Madagascar over a prolonged period of time in different waves and teams to try to help with that emergency need of just taking care of all those tortoises, as well as to help actually build some infrastructure so that these tortoises could be dispersed among different holding areas.
Over the years, Bronx Zoo experts have returned repeatedly to care for the tortoises to help get as many as possible returned to the wild. In late 2023, it was Kevin and Susie.
And there are two facilities operated by the Turtle Survival Alliance. We went to one of those facilities, the Lavavolo Tortoise Center, which is where there's about 14,000 tortoises that have all been confiscated from illegal trafficking and are being held at this facility with the hopes and goals of eventually reintroducing as many as possible back into the wild.
Susie says it helps that radiated tortoises are a pretty hardy species, used to surviving in the desert and going for long stretches without water.
After the confiscation, even though they may have been denied water and good nutrition for a while, they were actually still in fairly good shape, which was amazing.
Mostly that continues today, says Kevin.
Health-wise, the tortoises on the whole seem to be in very good health. Isolated incidents of what could be respiratory disease, but for the most part, they all seem to look like they're in pretty good condition.
When tortoises from different places are lumped together, as they are by poachers in these situations, there's an elevated disease risk, Kevin says. But luckily, that hasn't been a major problem with these tortoises. Since that 2018 bust, some of the tortoises have been released back into the wild. There have been additional confiscations as well. Ultimately, we have to address the demand from abroad, these experts say, or despite all this work, the species declines will continue. For WCS Wild Audio, this is Dan Rosen.
Today's episode was produced and reported by Dan Rosen, with help from Hannah Kaplan and Nat Moss. The WCS Wild Audio Podcast is a production of the Wildlife Conservation Society. Please join us next week for a new episode, and don't forget to rate or review the show wherever you get your podcasts.